Thank you, sir, for speaking with the CSR Journal. In the beginning, I'd like to know what kind of activities is Axis Bank mainly involved in?
Yeah, Axis Bank, from its CSR philosophy, is currently engaged in the area of sustainable livelihoods at the broad level, and we work mostly within the rural communities. Our work on CSR philanthropy started somewhere in 2003 and 4 when we started this thought process, and in 2006 we established Axis Bank Foundation to drive our strategic intent towards it. And when we started off in foundation, we decided to choose education as our core theme and worked in some wonderful projects in and around education, remedial education, education for the underprivileged, some special schools, etc., till about 2010. In spite of very satisfying and gratifying work that we did, we still changed tracks and came into the area of sustainable livelihood. The reason being, we thought that education as an isolated piece, we didn't have the sufficient understanding, sufficient depth that is needed in the field of education. And moreover, we thought that why is some of these social objectives of education, health, etc., not getting met? We came to the conclusion that unless you have the livelihood means of the family fairly well set, these objectives will not get met.
When you speak of being involved in education mainly, statistics show that India lags behind in terms of skilling as compared to other nations globally. What do you think we need to do to kind of at least reach there halfway? I believe there's a change in the education system also that's coming around, and there is vocational training and all that is happening. What do you think we need to do to cover that gap?
See, India is at that stage of its life of a country where we need to be prepared to reap the demographic dividends. The average age of the country is what could be 28, 29, and unless we focus on skilling the youth of for the next phase of their life, we will not be able to reap the demographic dividends. Skilling as a standalone item is not just sufficient. Skilling has to go hand in hand with employment generation. So if you don't do the skilling properly, you will have more frustration within the youth if you're not able to employ them gainfully. And employment, I don't mean employment in terms of a courier delivery or Amazon employment, which is more productive for them in terms of their career path, etc. So what we aspire in terms of employment
And the global competition.
Competition, we should employ them gainfully, if I may say so. So that is important. At this moment, I think we are in a phase where many stakeholders are getting together, but I don't think we have got into that space where we can tell that the employment generation has picked the necessary pace that it needs to. So that is going to be the primary objective that is needed from all the stakeholders, including government.
Okay. It is important for all stakeholders to come together and work in collaboration. With the large kind of demographic that we have, a lot of NGOs and foundations also for that matter are working in silos. It's important that for the impact to be larger, we need to collaborate and come together. But we have this feeling that I will do this and this is my foundation work and I will make sure it's different in this way. We aren't collaborating and coming together. How do you think we can address that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The sector generally has a tendency to work in silos. Everybody comes with their own thought process, everybody comes with their own strategy, everybody comes with their own intentions around outcomes, etc. But collaboration is something that can give you the multiplier effect. And as a strategy at Axis Bank, we believe in collaborating all around. Collaboration, the main collaboration for us is from the government. We believe that the biggest developmental agency in this country is the government. So unless you collaborate with the government, this is not going to work. The second biggest collaborator for us is the civil society, the NGO partners. Unless we work to their strengths, we are not going to execute a good project. We don't have our own execution capability, so we partner with our NGOs and work to their strengths. So that collaboration is something that is very important for us.
Like you rightly said, it cannot always be money. Of course, I understand that as a country, we do need to give money to a very large extent. But do you think we need to see an increased involvement of people at the senior level who are followed and listened to come on field and do a certain amount of work and show involvement rather than just tearing a check and giving some money?
For that, in India, I think the CSR has to go beyond the percentages.
Correct.
CSR is not a 1 or 2 percentage. You are going to see what you're talking about. That write a check and report in your balance sheet that you have done so many things. That's not the intent. Unless CSR gets into the corner room discussions, this is not going to work. Unless CSR comes from within, it's not going to work. So there are many organizations in India like us who have brought into their mainstream the CSR philosophy much before the mandate came in. Okay. The mandate came in 2013, but there are organizations which are working
Way beyond.
Even we started off in 2004 and 5, and fulfilling the mandate was not our primary objective. Primary objective was to give something back to the society as a corporate. We have been beneficiaries of our stakeholders, which includes our customers all around. So giving back was our intention. And if this is the core philosophy of your CSR, then it works. Otherwise, it will be just remain in the balance sheet and some spends which are not with any strategic intent. Another thing that needs to be built in any corporate CSR philosophy has to be built with a focused approach.
Okay.
You can't do everything. It may not be the right way to do CSR in that way.
Okay.
So we believe that you need to have a focused approach. That's why we were in education first.
Okay.
We came out of education. When I say we came out of education, it does not mean that the umbilical cord was cut in a surgical manner. We helped the projects run through its decided phase, and then slowly moved on to the livelihood space, where we are now in, and we are well entrenched in this space, and we wish to continue in this at least for the next 10 years. So that strategic intent is what I'm talking about.
When you are having a great amount of involvement in sustainable livelihoods, what are the kind of challenges that you are facing at the moment when you work out your strategies?
Yeah, at this moment, one of our concerns is because we are in the area of rural livelihood, it cannot happen without the agriculture, unless the agriculture part is well entrenched.
Okay.
You cannot have the livelihood needs of that community worked out. India is a rain-fed
Country.
Agriculture production area. So unless you harness the rainfall that happens in a much better fashion than what it is being done, the water budgeting, how to use water in the most optimum fashion, these are things that are going to be paramount in our work. So water becomes the biggest natural resource that we need to harness.
Okay.
So our investments in and around water is going to be substantial, needs to be substantial. The thought process around water needs to be substantial. The rural communities, while they're doing farming since 40-50 years, they may still not be aware of the latest agriculture practices and developments that are happening. So to bring knowledge into that community is very important. So that's why we need to build this collaboration along various experts that are available, bring them into this community and make sure that the process is, the entire value chain is well defined, and we take forward the community onto a progress path.
Could you tell me a few areas of states that you're involved in the country?
Yeah, while we are not very well defined in terms of our geographic
Mapping.
mapping and also our interests, because we are a bank that is spread all across India. We are present in all the states and union territories. But from a business perspective, it makes sense for us to spread ourselves all across the country. But because of the area of work that we are involved in, we reach out to areas that are most underserved.
Okay.
So you will see us working mostly in the central drylands of India, which includes states like Orissa, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Maharashtra, and in the west towards Gujarat and Rajasthan, where the need is much more pronounced. It does not mean that the other areas of the country the need is not there. It's just that we have chosen areas which need the help the maximum. So you will not find us in states like Kerala or Punjab. It's not by design, it's just that our resources are finite and the need is infinite.
Considering the states that you are involved in, a lot of other corporates also prefer to do work that's close by home also in those states. In the bargain, places like the Northeast are receiving very low amount of funds. One is the issue of monitoring. What do you think we can do to change that?
Again, agree with you that Northeast is not only in the CSR work, generally Northeast has been left behind. They feel isolated. Couple of things. It's not just cultural or economical reasons. It's more about the distance. You in far-flung areas of Northeast, accessibility is a problem, and Northeast has to be mainstreamed. I totally agree, and you will see us working more and more in Northeast in the coming days.
Okay. It's been only a few years since the mandate has come, but still there are certain companies who are very reluctant to spend or are served penalties, because they aren't spending enough. Where do you see the domain going in the next 5 or let's say 10 years for that matter?
I'm not aware of formal penalties, but I agree all the companies are not spending the required percentage as per the mandate that has been provided. India, the dispensation has chosen so far not to enforce with penalties so far, because the corporates are expected to be responsible and spend the money that is required to be spent. Many are not spending. Some are in the process of reaching that 2%. Some are way below. For many, it is a journey. And somebody who is not spending 2%, I would not categorize them as an offender today, because they are in the project of, they may be in the process of evaluating the right projects, and it's not an easy task. If it is writing a check, it is easy. So it's a long process. What has happened is, how I see this evolving is, from the government and other places, there are small nudges that are coming in, that your spend is not up to the mark and things like that. The boards of corporates are getting more and more sensitized to the need of spending CSR money in the required amount for a purpose that is well defined as per the mandate given by the board. So there is a lot of sensitization that is happening. So you will see in the coming days the CSR spends from the corporate world going up. The potential may be much higher. We may just be receiving about 50, who knows, about 50% of what is the potential from corporate India. Okay. So this travel from 50% to 100% is big money. So that's the process that I see in the next 2-3 years happening.
So that's like a growing trend where the monetary investment is increasing. Can you tell me a couple of other trends also the sector is seeing of CSR?
Sector is definitely getting into a strategic CSR objective. Earlier it was spends that were dispersed across sector. Anything that comes by was evaluated and then taken, but now sector is getting into a very focused approach, that the corporates understand that we cannot be in all the sectors across, So it's in a narrow lane that the travel is happening. Instead of spreading all across, get into a focused approach, and collaborations corporates are now willing to do. 2 years back, collaborations were not very well known for, but now collaborations is more importantly. I feel the governments, both the state governments and the central governments, have started reaching out to corporates,
Okay.
which is a welcome sign, because that collaboration is something that will hold the test of time. That collaboration is something that will help the community in a much larger fashion. That leverage is very important. So these are things that are changing at the ground level, and it's a welcome sign. And we are happy to be in that space where the CSR journey of the country is getting into the next orbit of travel, and it could be very exciting times for in the space.
When we talk to people about CSR, most of them try and believe that it's a jargon of some kind, but they don't understand that they are like the very crucial unit in making corporate social responsibility every citizen's social responsibility. How do you think we can make that happen?
See, good individuals make a good organization.
Correct.
Without doubt. Anybody knows it. It's no rocket science. So unless that personal social responsibility is ingrained in all of us, it does not get into the organization. While it can be driven from the top, but the main thing is the CSR philosophy has to be a part of each and every individual, each and every stakeholder, each and every employee. So that is a very difficult thing to do, because as individuals, each one of us has that thought around supporting the underprivileged, but as an organization, to have this well orchestrated is very important.
Okay.
So that philosophy has to be driven in an organization, because the character of our organization is built by the character of the individual. So that's very important.
Could you tell me very briefly what is CSR to you?
CSR to me is to look back upon my own life and see how fortunate I was, how privileged environment that was available to me helped me reach where I reached. It also is an opportunity, a moment to look back at people who did not complete the travel because of lack of opportunities, lack of resources. CSR to me is to bridge the gap that exists today between the haves and haves not, which is increasing day by day. So if I have been provided with that resource that is enough and more for me, there is no harm in sharing that resource, sharing that knowledge with a community that is not so privileged. And CSR to me is not just money. Money is one small element of CSR. CSR is often misunderstood as money. CSR is more about time and your mind. CSR works with, has to come from heart, for which money is not required.
Mr. Jacob, it's been absolutely lovely talking to you. Thank you for speaking with the CSR
Thank you.
Journal.
It's been a pleasure being with you. Thank you.